This is Kate Swoboda, creator of YourCourageousLife.com, director of the Courageous Living Coach certification at TeamCLCC.com, and author of the book, The Courage Habit, which is available at booksellers and at Amazon. The Your Courageous Life podcast is all about going after what you want and creating and living a more courageous, emotionally resilient life. Might drop a couple of F-bombs, so maybe don't listen with your kids in the backseat of the car. And here we go with today's episode. Okay, so today I have a topic that was requested by a listener. Yeah, I take requests. Sure, why not? And the request was to talk a little bit about choosing who you surround yourself with and how that can impact your well-being. Now, the person who requested this, they did not tell me anything about the situation that maybe they're dealing with that had them requesting this topic. And so I just want to put that out there so that, that person, when they listen, they know that I'm not thinking about who they are or anything specific. I don't know the specifics. And just in general, I actually think that when somebody requests a particular topic, just an FYI, it's helpful if I don't know a lot about the specific circumstances, because I think it's a good idea to just kind of speak generally about some of these things, and then everybody gets to take what they like and leave the rest. But if you have a topic you'd like me to talk about, I am happy to. So choosing who you surround yourself with. And the timing of this topic and the request of it is it feels a little bit divinely ordained because this has been a topic that has been, frankly, really heavy on my heart for about a year now. And a lot has shifted in how I view this topic in the past year. And I'll give kind of like just the broad strokes of the situation. But I'd say a little over a year ago, I was more in the camp of kind of what you hear about in typical self-help with choosing who you surround yourself with. Like, okay, so, what's the saying that you are the composite of the 5 people you associate with most? Those are the people who, some people say those are the people who determine your destiny and, things like that. And I think that there was a time when if someone had approached me and said, I have this relationship that I don't quite feel like is working out in this, that, or the other way, what should I do? I might have been a little more in the camp of life is short, just go ahead and let it go, move on with your life. And I got to tell you, the pain that I have felt being on the receiving end of someone who treated me that way, like really, and I mean, I'm speaking into that pain that I felt just within the past year as somebody who has a lot of tools, an amazing husband, people around me who love me deeply. And yet this one person deciding, in essence, I mean, I can't speak for them. I actually don't know for absolute certain that this was their mentality, but I can only assume it based on how things were handled with me. It was so painful to me. It has made me, let me rephrase that, because I really want to be intentional about how I phrase things. And I would love, instead of going back and re-recording, over that, I'll go ahead and just kind of give you guys an insight into how I try to frame things. I think that when we're afraid or when we're hurt, we have a tendency to phrase things from a victim mentality because we feel victimized by something. So when I start going, it made me, it's like, well, no, that situation didn't make me. How she treated me didn't make me go to some really dark places where I questioned my worth, where I really doubted myself, and sometimes even now still will reflect on things and feel like a kind of despair. So she didn't make me do that, but that's the response that I had, and that's the response that I have chosen to get really intentional about monitoring. Let's put it that way. But in essence, I the short story is that I had a friendship with somebody. I thought it was a really great friendship. I thought that I was being, I look at all the patterns work and stuff like that, and I apply it to my own life. And I thought I was being super intentional. I'm a flawed human being. I thought I was being super intentional about any flaws or patterns that I had. And there were definitely some times where after a hangout with this friend, I would reflect on it later and I would think to myself, oh gosh, you know what? I think I might have soapboxed a little bit on that opinion. Let me check in with her. And I would, and she'd be like, oh God, no, it's totally fine. And da, da, da. And long story short, it wasn't totally fine. Those times that I had tried to show up with as much integrity as I knew how to show up with, I was being told that things were fine when they really weren't fine, which meant that for her, or as I understand it, I can't say for sure, but for her, things piled up. And it all came to a head around a particular situation, at which point I was ghosted. And even when I was, we went through a short period of not being in contact, and I was kind of going, okay, given the circumstances, I think it's better for her to reach out to me. And she did. And then I said, hey, can we talk? And there was a lot of evasiveness, and the talk wasn't happening. And then within days of that talk, she went onto social media and started talking about how she was eliminating so-called toxic people from her life. So the pain that I felt about that, this is, it's a really common thing for people to say, get rid of those toxic people. And I think that that's a term that maybe a little over a year ago I would have tossed off myself. But now I find it profoundly dehumanizing. Just the hurt that I felt seeing a video posted on social media of someone calling me toxic when they were very clearly in the middle of refusing to talk to me. And even when I was reaching out and going, hey, can we clear the air? Like just being completely shunned. It's kind of indescribable to me. And I consider it part of my work when in any relationship, and especially if a relationship is in a match, to go, okay, there's a period where I just need to grieve and be really sad because things hurt. I'm not into this whole, like, I give no fucks. I think everybody cares. I think everybody gives a fuck. I think everybody does. Do I think that we let that control who we choose to be? No, of course not. But I think everybody on some level feels a ping of ouch when someone hurts them. And I felt just like a profound sense of, my head was going to these places of, am I not a worthy human being? Because to me, to go onto social media and make a video calling someone toxic, like first of all, I just wouldn't feel right in my heart doing that. That just would feel so cruel. But the only circumstances under which I could imagine doing something like that would be circumstances where someone was just like the most awful human being. And I have done the work in the past year to really accept that just because that's my standard doesn't mean it's everybody's standard. That people do the best they can with what they have. That everybody reacts at times in ways that are unkind, and they might not be aware of it, or they are, and maybe they think about it later. I don't know. But I've basically decided, okay, so what can I learn from this situation? And what I've decided to learn moving forward is that I want to radically reframe this idea about boundaries and people in the midst of this concept of choosing who you surround yourself with. Because I can hear someone, the imaginary, listeners, I guess, I could hear people, or I could imagine people going, Well, but Kate, what do you do when someone's behavior really is toxic? Or when it really is toxic for me? And that is an important distinction, by the way. There's a huge difference between calling people toxic and labeling a behavior toxic. One is totally dehumanizing, and the other might just be an accurate assessment of how something lands for you. So here's where I go with all this. Like, if you're thinking to yourself, well, okay, I don't want to ghost people, Kate. I don't want to suddenly shun people. So what do I do if something in a relationship is not working out? And so here's the metaphor that I will give you that I've pivoted to, and it is the metaphor of a sports team. Now, you do not have to be into sports. I'm actually not into sports other than CrossFit, but that's not quite the same thing. So you don't need to be into sports to understand this metaphor, no worries. But here it is. Okay, let's say you were in like an informal softball league or something like that. You go onto the field with these other players, and then you come off the field and you go back out into your life. And you understand that not everyone is on the softball team with you. And that even on that softball team, not everyone is playing at the same level. And that is how I have started to view, or the metaphor that I've been using at least to try to understand the human relationships as it relates to this concept of choosing who you surround yourself with. Because I definitely don't like the evaluative quality of this idea of choosing who you surround yourself with, as if some people just don't quite make it, and so like they're bad, or like and my goodness, I mean, I've been around self-help for a while, and I have heard people say like, oh, I just prioritize the top 5 performers in my circles. Like, ugh. Okay, I don't want to come to your dinner party anyway. Like, ew. Like, it's just like people are all operating at different levels. If you had a softball team, there are going to be some people who are better at running from one base to the other than they are at throwing. Very rarely is anyone the total package, right? Everybody has flaws, and even under the right circumstances, being tired or lonely or stressed, people don't behave in their highest. I look back at the friendship that is no more, and I go, yeah, she's correct. If we did end up having a conversation that was something of a closure conversation. I just got to hear a list of all the things I had ever done wrong in the friendship that had been going on for over a year that I had no idea about. And I was grateful for at least understanding a little bit about her point of view so that I could do some of my own healing. I see that conversation as a gift. But when I look at that, the list of things that were presented to me that were things I did wrong, I go, yeah, I mean, we might have different perspectives about exactly how some of that shook down, but there are kernels of truth in all of that. And why did I not perform at my best at all times? Well, because I'm human. And you listening to this, whether you are someone who is trying to make a decision about who you want to surround yourself with, or whether you are someone who maybe you're nodding your head and you're like, yeah, I had a friendship breakup too, and it was really painful and I feel terrible about it. It's like, you did your best. And whoever you surround yourself with, choosing with consciousness and with intention, they did their best. They're always doing their best. And under certain circumstances, they are not going to use the softball reference, they're not going to perform as well. It's not always game time, or we don't always bring our best game. So this sort of, you choose you're the aggregate of the top 5 people you surround yourself with. And if somebody is not, meeting your needs, just like let them go and move on, like all that. It's like, no. It's like, look, in my life, there are certain people who in my own mentality, they are on the team with me. And by on the team, I mean we are playing the same game in life. We are really trying to look at ourselves. We are looking at integrity. We are having honest conversations. We are creating room for joy. We are busting through limitations. We are telling ourselves that we can, even when fear is really loud. We are laughing together. We are crying together. We are being superficial and talking about fashion or pop culture together. That's the team that we are on. And even on that team, I have a real recognition that not everyone is playing at the same level at the same time, including me. And they understand. The people who are really on my team are the people who understand that too. Speaking of more team metaphors here, this idea that not everyone's playing at the same level, you got to throw the ball so that they can catch it. You cannot throw a fastball at someone and it creams them in the face and then you're angry at them going, why didn't you catch that fastball? Why aren't you playing at my level? Like, no, I don't want to go through life like that. What I want to understand, the grace that I want to give myself and the people that I love, is that if we are all doing this life thing together and we are all trying to play on the same team and we are all human and we are all flawed, we actually have to look around and decide with intention how we're going to play this game together. So in other words, let's put this into an example. I'm a huge examples person. Not everyone is on the team that I'm referring to. So for instance, I talk to a lot of people through coaching, for instance, who have conflict with family members. Your family members might not be on your team, so to speak. Like there might be a game of life that you are trying to play, that you are playing with specific close friends. And those close friends, it's like if they are out of integrity, they want you to point it out because they're playing the same game as you, which is integrity is so important to me that if I'm out of integrity, I need someone to help me see that. But your in-laws or your family members that you have conflict with, they might not be on your team playing that same game. Does that mean that you should cut them out of your life? Not necessarily. For one thing, they have no hope of being on your team if you're never talking to them about the behaviors that bother you. I look back now and at the friendship and I'm like, there was no hope of that situation ever being resolved by the time a year of stuff had piled up, especially given that I had tried to check in on some of it and was told, oh, it's okay. It wasn't okay, but I can't control other people. You can't control other people. You can only control yourself. So if you feel like you are looking around at the people in your life and you're going, I don't know if these people should be around me. I don't know. They don't quite cut the mustard. They don't quite da-da-da-da. It's like, well, are you talking to them about that? Are you bringing up with them the things that bother you? Because they are only handling them and you are only handling you. I have long believed that my triggers are my business. My triggers are my business. So in other words, if I am in association with someone, even if it's like I'm at a party and I have this feeling of like, God, they're really arrogant. They're always talking about how they're right and everybody else is wrong. It's like, okay, instead of labeling them as this air quotes bad person who's so arrogant, there's probably someone else here at this party who would find their stories fascinating or who would be really interested in their point of view and only their point of view. I'm getting triggered about this for a reason. That's my business. So I have a couple of options. One could be that maybe in my life I'm being really arrogant and telling everybody I think I'm right and I need to look at that. Two, maybe I actually am triggered because I need to take up more space in my life and I need to be telling more people about what I think. Sometimes that's what's going on for people. Three, maybe this is a place where other stuff is going on in my life and I'm just like triggered and it's not even about this person, but they're just kind of getting the blowback because there's this other stuff going on in my life. My triggers are my business. their triggers are their business. So when I think about who it is that I want to surround myself with, another thing I'm thinking about with that team metaphor is that the people who are on my team, those are the people who are also really interested in owning their own triggers and looking at their own behavior and going, if Kate is bugging me in some way, I'm going to parse through the parts of that are mine and bring to her attention the parts of that I don't know that they're mine. I think there's something about how we're relating here that could be improved, and I want to work on that. So again, back to this idea of, you got your softball team, and when you come together to play the game of softball, there's this intentionality around you're playing the same game. Not everybody is on that team with you. Your in-laws might not be on the team with you. That doesn't mean you don't talk to them. That doesn't mean you don't interact with them. I don't think anyway. I think it just means recognizing they might not be on the same team. And the reason I'm using this sports metaphor is because it's a little easier, I think, to understand. If somebody doesn't want to play softball, you can't make them play softball. If someone doesn't want to do life with the heart or the intention or the integrity or the let's have a do-over, let's talk, let's forgive, you can't make them. You just have to recognize that they might not be on your team. And it doesn't mean you cut them out necessarily. It just means recognizing that who you surround yourself with consists of the people who are doing this core level of work, and everybody's playing the same game. And then there are people who are not, and that is okay. They also have something of value to give your life, I believe. I want to also speak into, related to this, the concept of energy vampires, because this is one that I've been talking about this one for years. This is not a recent shift for me, but I've been talking about this one for years. This concept of, get rid of these energy vampires, things like that. I don't think that energy vampires exist, because at least in my life, nobody can suck my energy away unless I'm holding out my arm and here's a vein. How can anyone possibly take my energy? How can there be an energy vampire? Energy vampires, if we're going to use that term, or if I use the term the way it's typically used, when people talk about them, they talk about things like all this drama, a lot of obligation, expecting caretaking, expecting me to drop everything and come da-da-da. It's like, well, if you're not willing to caretake, if you're not willing to drop everything and go handle them, if you're not willing to sit and listen to the drama, how can they be energy vampires? If you're not willing to be 50% of the transaction of I need you to do something for me, then how can they be energy vampires? It takes two people in anything obligatory. Usually when people talk about energy vampires, they're talking about things that feel really obligatory, like someone's taking something from you. Who in the world can possibly take your energy? Your energy is your business, and their energy is theirs. And in the, kind of I need something from you transaction, the 50% of it is the person making the request or the demand, however they phrase it, I need something from you. And 50% is the other person going, yeah, I will, or no, I won't. So I think that in essence, this recognition that I'll just bring it back to now my life. There's this kind of core group of people who I recognize are all on the same team with me. And the cool thing about this image for me is that it's not about having this insular, cliquey circle. There's a lot of room in my heart for who gets to be on this team with me. And what an abundant way to look at this. Instead of this idea of the top 5 people and you're prioritizing them because you've evaluated them somehow and they're high performers, and it's like, no, how about an ever expanding circle of people who share like-minded values and who are practicing them wholeheartedly. So as you go out into your worlds, and you might even have multiple teams depending on the circumstances. As you go to work at that job that you're not really a fan of, instead of it being this binary of these people who are in and are okay, and I'll talk to them and I'll relate to them, and then the people who are out, how about it being just a recognition that there are certain people who are showing up with the skill set or the values where we can be on a team together. And at any time, these other people who currently might not be living according to the same values or practicing the same skill set, people change, right? Like at any time, they might join us on the team. Or maybe in your family, a recognition that there are certain family members who are really invested in doing the work to try to create peace. And there are certain family members who are not. And maybe even some who are actively creating disharmony. A real recognition that those family members that are creating disharmony are doing the best they can with the skills that they've got. And I don't like hearing that either when I am reminded of it. I understand that it's true. I don't like it. I wish that we lived in a world where people just understood the lessons of kindergarten, which are don't be mean to people, right? But you have to understand that person does not realize they are being so unkind to people. Even if you tell them, they don't believe you. That's what's going on. That's why they perpetuate that behavior. And the only skills they have are to lash out in a way that's mean or to create disharmony. They don't realize what they're doing. That's not letting them off the hook. Yeah, their behavior has an impact. Absolutely, there are people in my life where based on the behaviors that they've shown me, it's like, yeah, we would have to have a conversation and really kind of work out an understanding between the two of us that this was the impact of that behavior. So I'm not just talking about like everybody's doing their best, it's all good and glitter and start it. And like I'm saying something more nuanced. I'm saying everyone's doing their best. People don't realize the harm that they cause. No, you don't have to pull up a chair and sit right beside someone in the middle of their bullshit. But you also have to understand how capable you are of perpetuating the same bullshit under the right circumstances. Lacking a skill set, being inordinately stressed, there are a million different factors that could be different in your own life that could have you showing up with just as poor of a skill set as that person. Again, doesn't mean you have to deal with it all the time, but it does mean, I think, at least for me, to live fully in integrity with the humanity of who we all are. It means understanding that I am imperfect and I am doing the best I can. And sometimes even despite my very best efforts, I have hurt other people. And that sucks. But the people who are on my team are the people who are recognizing that that's part of the human experience and then going, let me clean it up. Let me have a do-over. Let me actively practice compassion. Plenty of people like to do scripty little quotes on Instagram about compassion. But real compassion is about what I'm talking about today. Real compassion is not just like, oh, be compassionate. It's like, this person really hurt me. And what I really want to do right now is hurt back. I want to give them a mouthful. I want to tell them how they fucked up and did it. No, I need to stop, pause. Compassion is the practice of stopping, pausing, understanding that under the right circumstances, I have the potential to behave in the same way. And I might have even behaved that way before. And so I want to play a bigger game. Now, the last thing I'll leave you with is if you have perhaps a lot of people around you, coworkers, family members, people you live near, people you randomly meet at a bookstore or coffee shop, and you're kind of trying to figure out is this person my person? Are these people my people? Are they on my team? And in my book, The Courage Habit, I actually talk about this in the chapter on reaching out and creating community, because it's so important. And I think that many of us really hunger for the kinds of relationships that I've been talking about on this podcast, these relationships where it's like, yeah, everybody's looking around going, people are imperfect. Let's get vulnerable. Let's be real. Like, we're going to have fun together. But we also recognize that just because we have tough times doesn't mean that we like give each other the silent treatment, or I'm not your friend anymore, or I'm never going to talk to you again, or, whatever the case might be. Like we want more than that. So how do I find those people? These are the things that I look for. And again, everybody's got a different skill set who's showing up for your team. So it's not like these are going to be perfect, but here it is. Okay. So this is on page 154 of The Courage Habit. I look for people who use vulnerability instead of upholding an image. So they'll admit when things are hard instead of pretending that things are perfect. I look for people who prioritize optimism over complaining. And by the way, everybody needs some space sometimes to vent and complain. I would absolutely say it's one of my flaws that sometimes I get into this like complaining space that it's like a cyclone is the word I think of, where suddenly I'm complaining and then this is wrong and then that's wrong and then da-da-da. Like, very human. We've all been there. And if you are that way too, one of the challenges I would offer to you is to start telling your friends, will you cut me off after 5 minutes? I just need like 5 minutes to vent about this, and then I'm going to stop and I'm going to reframe, But like, it's very human to sometimes just need 5 minutes to be like, fuckity fuck, 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 fuckity fuck, 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 fuck. Sorry. Like I said in the intro, hope your kids weren't in the backseat. All right, so optimism instead of complaining. While people are human and might sometimes need to vent and complain, in general, is this person hoping to find solutions to their problems rather than staying stuck in listing all the things that are wrong? Another thing that I would encourage you to look for, do they offer empathy instead of advice? Now, I personally love getting advice from friends, but advice without empathy is the real issue here. So it's when you talk to someone about something that's upsetting you, are you feeling like they really get the impact of it, the hurt that you're feeling, rather than just moving straight to suggestions for improvement? That's all. So again, we're moving out of a binary. It's like, it's not vulnerability good, upholding an image bad. If I ever see that friend upholding an image, they are bad. No, it's like, it's a mix of both. Do you ever see the vulnerability? Well, then guess what? You've probably already got something of a good thing from this person, because most people are afraid to show any vulnerability at all. If you get someone who, like raising my hand here, who might have, like when they're really stressed and triggered, this tendency to like just complain and sometimes get lost in the complaining, are they in the game with you of wanting to be reminded, like, hey, you didn't want to spend all day talking about this? And with empathy and advice, it's not about, do they only give me empathy? Yeah, they might give you advice. They might sometimes go into fix-it mode because they're human and they're not thinking. But like, do you generally trust that they actually get that you're hurting when you're hurting? Big one that I look for, compassion over critique. They aren't gossiping, judging, or being catty about you or other people. I have come to understand that if someone is talking badly about other people that they are close to, eventually they will do it about me. And kindness over tough love. They will challenge you for your benefit in ways that are gentle and that you can hear, rather than that tough love BS of just get over it. You're too good for that. Da-da-da. And again, recognizing that everyone's on a spectrum. Have I rushed to give advice rather than attended to empathy? Yeah. Have I been catty and gossiped about other people or put them down behind their back? Yeah. Of course I have. Of course we all have. We're human. We've all done these things. The question is, really for me, and that I'm inviting you into as well, when you're considering, choosing who you want to surround yourself with, are these people who are open to the conversation of, hey, let's try to do it differently. Hey, I've noticed this thing and I'd like to do it differently. And I have to say that for myself, I think that the work starts with me. So what I attempt to do is not to walk into my relationships with any pronouncements about how other people have to be. I don't walk into my relationships with the other people who are playing this game of life with me going, hey, everybody, so here's the thing. We all need to stop complaining. We've been doing too much of that lately, and I'm not going to listen if you complain, and I'm not going to complain. So, that's how it's going to be. I'm no more complaining. It's like, it's not about walking into your social circles and making a pronouncement about how everyone has to be. What I try to do is just pepper into my conversation some statements that are about how I want to show up. So if I'm really looking at my tendency to complain, then it will be something like, I'm really frustrated about this situation. But you know what? I'm going to take a breath. I really don't want to complain about it right now. That's something I'm looking at in my life. Boom. That's it. And if the person says, oh, no, it's okay to talk about it. Maybe I'll go, yeah, I know it's okay to talk about it. I really this week want to practice noticing where I have a tendency to complain. It doesn't feel good in my body. So in other words, just make the work about you. And by the way, when you're trying to change behaviors, depending on the person, sometimes it can kind of throw them. Relationships are something of a dance. And when you start showing up differently, sometimes that makes other people feel a little bit uncomfortable. And that's okay. And I've had situations before where maybe I spoke into something that I wanted to change. And then the person said, oh, well, okay. I don't know. Now I feel like I can't complain though. Or, weren't you just, complaining about so-and-so last week? It's like, those are opportunities in my mind to set a container for how things will go moving forward and also to clean up the past. So I'll just do the clean up the past first. If someone says, well, yeah, you were really complaining about last week, using that as an opportunity for me to go, yeah, I felt really bad about that. And by the way, I'm sorry that I went on and on about them. I really am. It really was not a behavior that I was proud of when I reflected on that. And then in terms of setting a container for moving forward, if they say something like, oh gosh, well, now I feel kind of self-conscious, like I can't complain around you. You could answer something like, well, I am trying to watch, complaining in my life in general. And one thing that, maybe we could do is if you have something you want to really vent about, let's just talk about it for 5 minutes and then move on after that. Now, that ability to say something like, yeah, I'll listen for, a set amount of time and then let's talk about something else. That's a skill set that I developed. And it's a skill set I developed through receiving coaching and through practicing statements like that and, trying it out over time. And this is where we get back to even people who are on the same team. Not everyone's playing on the same level, but there's always that invitation for people to join you where you're at if they want to. Because it was someone saying to me that statement that had me go, oh, okay, I like that. I really like that. This person is not monitoring my behavior. They're just speaking into what they're trying to define for themselves, and they're still relating to me in the place that I'm at now, which is right now I really want some time to complain, but they're telling me I'm happy to listen to what's going on for you. I get it. Let's just put a time limit on it. And it was like, what a wonderfully co-created idea. So so to speak, to keep with this sports metaphor, I was on the same team as that person. I was not at that time playing at their level of skill in that area. And when they modeled for me a way that I could play at a higher level, it was like, wow, okay. Oh, thank you. So this is how I think we transform our entire worlds. If you want to have better relationships with the people who are around you, just in general, or if you're looking at your life and you're going, who am I surrounding myself with, and what's the impact that they're having on my well-being, I think the most powerful place to go to is I choose the impact that they have on my well-being. And there are ways to do that. One way is just the mental check for myself of like, oh, okay, yeah, this person, their behavior, like, it's not my favorite, but you know what? I mean, they're not on my, my team. And that's okay. I can still interact with them. People who play softball still talk to people at the grocery store and the PTA and everything like that, right? Just because they're not on the softball team doesn't mean they don't talk to them. They just understand they're not on the softball team, so why would they want to talk about softball? Similar kind of thing in the game of life. Some people are playing the same game as you. Some people are playing the game of compassion over critique or empathy over advice or, and some people are not, and that's okay. And you are in a really powerful position. All of us are in a really powerful position to influence every single group that we are in a powerful way because of how we show up. And again, it's not about going into those groups and trying to influence them by telling them how they need to be better or positing ourselves as the guru. You could make the work solely about how you show up in every single group that you are in, and it will have a ripple effect on the other people around you. And it's their ripple effect, positive or negative, air quotes, right? Like some people will react to you showing up in your highest and with as much integrity and love and compassion as you can muster by being like, oh my God, I just can't stand. And again, their triggers are their business. Your triggers are your business. What I can promise you is that a reasonable number of people, and this is how you will find out who's on your team, a reasonable number of people are going to be excited, inspired, hopeful. A reasonable number of people are going to feel something in their heart that goes, oh my God, this person, yes, I want what they are serving up. I want to be around someone who really is in this game. On a heart level, they will recognize it. And that is where you're really going to find your ride or die people. That's where you're really going to find the people who don't just want to get together or have a chat and then call that connection. It's a deeper, richer level of connection. And it all starts because you choose to look at you. All right, that's today's podcast. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. You know you can continue the work and the fun if you want to. Head on over to yourcourageouslife.com/begin and become a Your Courageous Life subscriber, because as soon as you sign up, you get access to an entire library of worksheets and audios and other bonuses. And of course, you'll be receiving more courage in your inbox. And who wouldn't love that? You can learn more about the Courageous Living Coach certification at teamclcc.com. You can get the Courage Habit at your local bookseller, on Amazon, wherever you like. We can even connect on social media. I'm on Facebook at Your Courageous Life. So look for facebook.com/Your Courageous Life. And I'm on Instagram as Kate Courageous. And I'd love to connect with you on Instagram. So here's to you. using these courageous tools in your life and creating a real ripple effect of good. And again, thanks so much for listening. I love it that you're here.